Hello, welcome to this series of episodes on USSD codes, and we are going to be discussing about USSD codes, how to build them, and why they are very important in Africa. A USSD application looks something similar to this, and it's available on any type of device that's out there, any type of mobile device out there. So whether it's a feature phone or a smartphone, you should be able to use USSD. Some of the most popular USSD codes applications in Africa is something like this, star 544, star 144 by Safaricom. We also have star 522 by KCB that also does mobile banking. It's KCB's mobile banking USSD code. And we also have star 234, which is for M-Pesa. So you can dial star 234 and actually do mobile money transfer. So USSD is very important in Africa, and it's actually more popular than the internet and mobile apps. Some of the advantages that USSD has over internet and mobile apps is, again, as I mentioned before, it's available on every type of device, whether it's a feature phone or it's a smartphone. Number two is the good thing about it is you're able to actually program USSD on a sort of an IoT device to have the IoT dial the USSD code itself. And unlike SMS, where each message is transactional, with USSD, a session is maintained as you transfer data to a server. So with IoT, USSD has an opportunity. The other thing is, unlike internet where you need mobile bundles or you need Wi-Fi in order to access your USSD application, the payer or the owner of the USSD code can actually pay for usage. So you can provide it free to your users, and you can pay for their session usage. So that enables organizations to be able to reach far to reach areas and provide services in those regions without really much worrying about the cost of use. So today we are going to be talking about how you can build a robust USSD application using Hello Duty. Now, to get started, what you need to do is click on that Get Started button, come in and fill in your details on this form, submit it, and we'll provide you access to your own org. Once you have access to your org, you will land on something that looks similar to this. At the top here, we have some tutorials, and you'll find this tutorial here. So you can click on this tutorial on how to create a USSD flow, and you'll actually be listening to this tutorial itself. So to get started, we'll come to Automation, click on Flows, then click on the Create button. Next, we'll give our USSD flow a name. In this one, I'll call this basically appointment booking. I'll give my USSD a description. This is a USSD application to enable users book a demo appointment. My type here will be USSD. I see Grammarly here. Yes. My type here is USSD, and I click Save. So once I do that, I have a blank canvas now that I can be able to use to manipulate or create my USSD flow. On the left-hand side, I have some process blocks that we will be adding to the center here for them to be executed. So we'll be adding from the left to the center, then configuring them on the right-hand side of our screen. So here on the left, we have a menu block. We use that menu block to configure what will be sent to the user's device. So each time they're interacting with the system. or they're interacting with the USSD code, will be sending them menu items to interact with. Our formula then helps us receive information and manipulate it in a way in which we like, so we'll be able to see that. A jump block helps us jump from one block to another, skipping all the blocks in between. So you can either jump forward or you can jump back. A nice or a given scenario for this will be when you see press 99 to go back. 99 can either send you to the last previous page or few pages before. So that's what a jump block does in this case. We'll look at the rest later, but for now, let's start off with our simple USSD flow. So to get started, I will assume a scenario where I have new users who I want to register, and I have existing users who I want to skip and go right ahead and book an appointment. So I'll just welcome them and have them go straight ahead to book an appointment. So I'll start off by putting in a welcome message. And the first scenario that I'll build off is the register scenario. So welcome, I'll type in here, welcome to, the name of my organization in this case will be the SAR Tech system. So SAR Tech, it's one word. And welcome to SAR Tech, please register below. So I'll recognize that this user does not exist. It's not a user or a member of SAR Tech, and I'll have them register below to get a demo. So I'll provide them with the option 1, which is register. So when they come and they see this message, they can click register. Another thing that you can do here just for good and high quality user experience is you can go on and say, please register below, and go straight to it and ask, what is your name? What is your first name? We want to just split those two details apart. What is your first name? And then you can switch from value with options straight to value. So what we are going to be putting here is no longer welcome, but first name. So we're going to say, welcome, what is your first name? I will then click on duplicate. I'll get a copy, but this time I will edit some details out to get the last name. And I'll delete this again. We don't want to welcome them again. And we will now ask for the last name. Next, we would like to also ask them for their email, because we will be sending them some details to their email. Something that you will notice here, we have what is called as response types. Remember, the values that are coming from the USSD come in as plain text. So it's up to you to actually do the validation against that data. Thankfully for Hello Duty, we've simplified that process, and depending on the response type that you ask the user or the response type that you select here, we are able to validate against that. And if it's in error, we can use the error handling to replay that message in different text formats. So here I'll ask, what is your email? So I'll assume they understand what is an email, but if they do not enter a valid email, I'll replay that message again. So I'll just copy this here. What is your email? Enter a valid email in the format. So I'll say surname at email.com. So maybe I can put some brackets around this so that they know that that's help text. So let's save that and let's test our flow so far. So one of the things that you noticed here, I have not asked the user for their phone number. By dialing the USSD code, we know their phone number automatically. That phone number is presented to us. We'll see how we use that later. So far we're just going to ask them for their first name, last name, and email. So let's test that. Start test. Welcome to SATEC. Please register below. What is your first name? My first name is John. What is your last name? My last name is Doe. What is your email? John. And I'll just try play around. And you can see here the validation has automatically kicked in, and it has notified me that that was invalid. So I'm just now going to provide a valid email, and let's see. Okay, great. So that executed correctly. I've managed to collect that information. And as you can see here, we are no longer able to add anything else because similarly on the USSD flow, that is disconnected. So we'll now proceed on to build the next part of our flow. So the next part of our flow will be looking at an existing user and how we can separate the two of them. How can we capture whether this user is an existing user or a new user? So I'll go first of all and add in a group block in here and move all my items that I've already created into this group block. And I'll call this sign up or register. So the flow for this will be when a user is registered. Then above this, I'll add a data block, and a data block helps us retrieve information from our database. And in this case, what we'll be retrieving is the contact's details. So I'll call this contact, and the collection I'll be working against is the contact collection. And we'll be requesting for a value here, which will be the phone number. So you can either use an ID or a phone number to get those details. And what I'd like to be returned is just the name, okay? And nothing else needs to be configured after that. So I did mention earlier on that we have the customer's phone number already presented to us, and we can get that phone number by looking at system recipient full. So that gives us the phone number of the person who's dialing this USSD code. So we'll change the name for this block to phone. But because we are testing our system using the sandbox, system recipient phone.full is empty. So just to make sure we always have a phone number, I'll add another variable, which is test phone, and that's how we add variables. So that becomes a variable in itself. It says it's unrecognized. That's because we have not added it as a variable. So here I'll have test phone, and I will use one of these phone numbers here, maybe 11, something like that. Now we can save that. This requires an ID, and here we will populate the phone itself. So this variable phone up here. When we also visit phone, we also see now it does not say unidentified value. So when we click save, let's save it. Now this time it should work. And we say test, start test. It goes straight towards your first name. So in this scenario, we don't have this phone number in the database. So let's go back to our contact. We have received the contact. The next thing we are going to do is add another formula to check that the results of contact are not empty. So in this case, we are going to be looking at, I can also use this variable here. And we're just going to be looking at contacts. Actually, what I'll do is I'll change this from a get to a list. I prefer using the list to query so that you can do a query. And for my filter here, I'll say phone, and I'll say here, use the phone there. Okay. Oh, formula 2 is missing. So this here, I'll ask contact exists. So it will be such a contact question like that. And for here, what I'll do is I will take contact above, which we expect an array, and I'll say I need it to be greater than 0. And if it's so, I would like you to say yes. If it's not, I'd like you to say no. So this is a shorthand that uses this question mark, and if yes, if it's greater than 0, it will return the value of yes. If it's not greater than 0, it will return the value of no. So that is if it's 0 or less than 0, which is unlikely, more likely it's either 0 or has some value in it. And we'll take a look at that some more. And I'll say save there. So contact exists. So we have our contact here, which we have limited to 1, so we only expect 1 result. And because of that, we are able to see contact.length there. So the next block I'll add here is in the scenario where we already have an existing user. So what I would like them to do is immediately go to the book appointment section. So this I'll call welcome. Yeah, it's valid welcome. The only one option for today we'll have is book appointments. And here we'll type in a message, welcome. And this time we will use the name that we have derived, because this contact is assumed at this point to exist. We will use that name to welcome them, so to customize the message. Welcome to, and this is Sir Tech. Select an option below to proceed. So here you can add different other options. One of the other options you could have here is maybe Badilisha Lugha. So that's change language. So change language or whatever. So you can have Badilisha Lugha, and they click and they move to another language. You change the language and say there, change language. So that way, whoever is able to understand is able to understand. So it's some good UX experience there. Then we will use our contact exists here, and we'll say contact exists equals to yes. So this will only execute only in the scenario that a contact exists. For register, I will switch here and say contact exists equal no. So now we can save our flow so far, and let's see just based on what we have developed, does it work? Yeah, otherwise we might be just accumulating errors as we go. So let's execute this. Let's add that. We can see here that phone, no contact exists, I think. Yeah. So this should have executed. Let's see quickly. So contact exists, yes or no. So I used a small no there. So let's just align these two so as to use capitals as we defined in this formula here. So yes or no. Good. So now let's test again. So that's good. It was able to capture that issue, and now you see it's working. So it skipped the block, the welcome block, and went to the register block. You can also replicate the same scenario by moving the welcome block to the bottom and then using the jump block. And I'll retry the same scenario for you to see. So you can decide to have a very long sequence of events using the jump block, jump to that. And I'll also show you another scenario where you can have a very separate, different and distinct flow just for registration. And you can embed that flow into this one later in this series. We'll take a look at that later in this series. So my name here is John. My last name is Doe. My email is john@doe.com. And that's it. So we didn't put much more after registration. So for us to test this, we have to save this contact somewhere before we can proceed. So I'm going to add another data block here, and this I'll also call contact, or I'll call this the new contact. Collection is contact. We are creating for the last name. We will select what is our last name here. For the phone, we will select what is the phone here. For the email, we will select email there. And last but not least, for the first name, we will select the first name here. So we can see here, we don't have a next to the last name, and that's because we cannot remove the last name. That's a mandatory field for the contact collection, but all the others are very optional. And there's many much more that maybe you could have asked the user. You can come and populate. Later in this series, we're going to see how you can add more fields to the contact collection based on what you want to collect, or you can select any other collection from the list of this and how you can create your own collection. Okay, so now we have this ability now to create a new contact. So let's save this and let's see how it runs. All right. So we'll click Start Test. Welcome. Again, did detect that no contact exists. So I'm going to say my name is Peter. My last name is Mark. So how you spell Peter? Peter@sa.com. Okay, and that's it. So let's test this again. We should expect to see that a contact is created. Peter, Mark, Peter@sa.com. Yep, and now we got it working correctly. So the purpose of the sandbox is just for you to make sure that what you build is working. It seems in the last part it didn't save correctly, but now it did save it correctly. And now we can see that Peter@sa.com is working, and it ended again. So we can test it another time just to make sure that it's really working. And this time we see that a contact was found. So Mark Peter was found, Peter Mark was found. Now we have welcome Mark Peter to SATEC, select an option. So that was our welcome option here that only works when a contact exists. Is yes. So now we need to book an appointment. So let's add a menu for that. So we're going to add a menu here, and this is book appointment. The type is a date. Again, the system will do the self-validation for us. And this is when are you available for a house visit. So SA does everything. Maybe this is just a solar installation that's happening. So we are going to book an appointment for a house visit. So put a question mark just to make sure that's correct. And then we are going to also do error handling here. And we are going to say, please enter a valid date in the format date, day, month, year. And that's going to do our error handling for us. Then finally, once they have selected an appointment, we also like now to just finish, right? And give a message. Thank you. We'll visit you then. So thank you. So one of the cool things we can do, we will visit you on. This is really cool because I can come here, select a variable, and choose book appointment book appointment, and the value that they entered in book appointment will be used on this menu block. Should you need assistance before, or we can say to cancel, call this number, office number, and it can be anything. So 254-710-90000, something like that. So it can be something like that. And we are done. So let's test it again. So just to be sure, let's see. It captured Peter Mark. We built that in book appointment. I'll say 02nd of 09, and I'll just put my own stuff in there. Okay, that's the error handling, 09 of 02nd of 2024. I enter. Thank you. We will visit on that date to cancel call our office number given there. So you can go ahead and actually do other things, and that is after the finish button. You might want to maybe add an SMS block in there to send, remember our phone number here, phone number.full, and then you can replay this message in that SMS. But then you need to have like an SMS send ID, and we'll use that SMS send ID to send that message. So it will send that message automatically to that individual who dialed your code, and then do a finish. So let's do another last demo. In this scenario, we are going to change the phone number, and we're going to test the register scenario. So I'm just going to save my execution variables there. Then go ahead and say start test. Welcome to StarTech. What's your first name? My first name is John. My last name is John Fred. John@fred.com. It creates a new contact for me. That's when are you available for a house visit, and I say 02nd of 09 of 2024. And great, so it executes well. So before we sum up, you might be curious as to where does all this information get stored. So far, we are not storing any of this information. We are telling the USSD code, we proceed all the way to the end, and we don't store any of this information, but that's possible. We have something called responses that I'll now proceed to show you how we store that information into responses, how you can download that information to your computer via CSV or export it to another system via CSV. So to do that, I'll just remove this SMS block, and just before finish, I'll add a formula block again, and this formula block will help us just maybe to capture the name of this individual, whether they're registered with us already or not. So I'll call this name, and I'll put it up here. And how this will run is it will use the contact, out of habit, you'll go to contact name, and if that is blank, it will use the first name and last name. So it will say first name, and this will be also last name. So it will do a combination of the first name and the last name. Otherwise, it will use contact name. Then something that you might have seen in most of these blocks, in either this formula or this checkbox here. So I'm going to tick that checkbox there, and in book the appointment, I'll also tick that checkbox there. And somewhere else, I'll also tick the checkboxes under the phone. So I want to capture the phone. I want to capture the name. So I've moved the name up. So the name, phone, and appointment. And our CSV will capture that information in that same sequence. Just so very simply like that. I didn't have to go and save my information elsewhere. I just tick that checkbox there. So I'll save this information. And let's go ahead and give it a test. So I'll use 1-1. Oh, maybe it should have been more unique. I'll say book an appointment. So the name is Fred John, and I like a visit on the 9th of 2024. It's a bit far off, but that's when I'll be having some money. So that goes in. And then now I'll test again, maybe with some random number. So I'll say start test. We already still have that number. So maybe let's try again another number. Maybe I'll just put another number there. Say save, start test. So in this scenario, we don't have this user in our system. So my name here is Housing. Next, Ton. My name is Housing Ton. My email is housing@ton.com. So the name is captured there, and housing is a bit rich. Would like a demo as soon as possible. Cool, that's nice. Let's do another demo too. Yeah, maybe save those details, and we start our test. Doesn't exist, so Gloria Karimi. Glo@karimi.com. And Gloria would like it as soon as next week. Perfect. So we have captured a couple of details. I know we did this via the sandbox, but equally the same procedure will happen in the production instance. So in the live instance, we should expect the same kind of experience that we see here on the sandbox. So I'll go back one step by clicking on this blue icon up here. And I will click on the responses tab down here. Then I'll go to appointment booking. And here I should see a list of different people who have dialed our code. So we have this one here, who is phone number, name, and book appointment. Ignore the status field there, because on the last block, I had the ability to actually enter an item, and it assumes that the flow terminated before I could enter values. So I did not get to the last block of the flow. That's why it comes with the status of failed. Otherwise, it was successfully completed. As I can see, Gloria Karimi here, Housing Ton, when they'd like to book an appointment, etc. So I can go on and click list view all, and I'll click submit, and I should see that I can export it in an Excel sheet, and then I can continue either share it with someone else for review, or it could be for my own consumption for data analysis. So that there is a short and quick sample demo on how to build a very robust USSD application. The USSD application that we took a look at was able to distinguish between an existing and a new user. And for an existing user, they skipped directly to book a demo or book an appointment. But for a new user, we asked them for some details so that we could register them on our system, then went ahead to ask them to book an appointment. So this is the first set of this series, and this first set is just about building a very simple USSD flow. On the next upcoming series, we'll be looking at how to make this much more complex how to integrate with a third-party system, and more interestingly, how to integrate with a mobile payment solution such as M-Pesa. So stay tuned and check our next series somewhere around on the screen right now. All right, talk to you later.